Every year, thousands of people vanish without a trace, but some disappearances leave behind something far more disturbing than silence: signals. From ghostly radio broadcasts to impossible dashcam whispers, these 5 chilling cases weren't just unsolved, they were broadcasted. What exactly were these people trying to say before they vanished? And who, or what, was listening on the other end? These are the 5 terrifying signals from the missing, and they may still be transmitting. Welcome to Unsolved Archives, where we delve into the hidden, the mysterious, and the unanswered. Share your thoughts in the comments. Your insight could be the key to unlocking the truth. The Windmere Signal. In the heart of Oregon's Cascade Range, tucked between pine forests and misty lakes, lies the nearly forgotten town of Windmere. With a population that never exceeded 2,000, it was the sort of place you'd only pass through by accident. But in January 2011, Windmere became the center of a mystery that still haunts the few who remain. It began with a voice. Delaney Frost was 17, a senior at Windmere High, and known for being quiet but deeply intelligent. She had a fascination with shortwave radios, a hobby inherited from her late grandfather who taught her how to build receivers and listen to transmissions from across the world. Her room, cluttered with wires and antennas, buzzed with static most nights. She said she liked the noise. It made her feel less alone. On January 14th, a heavy winter storm rolled into the region. Trees bent under the weight of ice, power flickered, and visibility dropped to nearly nothing. School was canceled early, and Delaney left the building just after noon. She never made it home. Her last known location was roughly a mile from her house, along a wooded trail she took every day. When she didn't arrive, her parents assumed she'd stayed with a friend due to the storm. But by the following morning, panic had set in. Local police, firefighters, and dozens of volunteers fanned out through the woods. Snow made tracking difficult, but dogs picked up her scent along the trail, until it simply stopped, as if she had been plucked off the ground. No blood. No clothing. Just the sudden absence of presence. 3 days later, the Windmere sheriff received a strange call. A man operating a ham radio station on the outskirts of town claimed to have recorded something unusual. During the height of the storm, while scanning frequencies, he intercepted what he believed to be a distress transmission. He played the recording for the sheriff, and then for Delaney's parents. The voice on the tape was unmistakably hers. "It's under the lake. They're watching us. Under the lake. They're watching us." The words repeated in a loop, filled with static and strange background clicks that resembled Morse code, though no one could translate it. Even stranger, the frequency it came through, 23.5 MHz, wasn't used by any civilian or government band. It shouldn't have been broadcasting anything. Searchers turned their attention to Lake Wren, a man-made reservoir about 2 miles north of town. It had been created decades ago when a dam was built over a dried-up logging site. Divers explored the lake despite poor visibility and near-freezing temperatures. On the second day, they found something. A single pink shoelace, tangled in a submerged tree limb. Delaney's parents confirmed it matched the shoes she wore the day she disappeared. But how had she reached the lake? There were no footprints, no sign she'd ever left the trail. The case grew colder with each passing week. Police suggested she had run away, perhaps fallen into the lake on her own. Others whispered darker things, that the woods had taken her, that Windmere was cursed. Her mother refused to believe she was dead, often sitting by her daughter's radio late at night, listening to the static. Then, in 2016, 5 years after her disappearance, something unexplainable happened. A group of students from Portland State University visited Windmere as part of a field assignment in paranormal anthropology, a fringe course taught by a professor known for his interest in the occult. The group included 3 students and a TA. One of the students, Mia Tran, brought along an old military-grade transceiver. On the second night of their stay, while camped near Lake Wren, Mia picked up a faint voice on her scanner. She recorded it. Again, it was Delaney's voice. "It's under the lake. They're watching us." The words were the same, but the tone was different. More frantic. And this time, there was a new sentence at the end. "Tell Mom I didn't fall." I saw the lights. News spread quickly. The town's interest reignited. Search efforts resumed, this time with paranormal investigators and conspiracy theorists joining in. Some claimed they saw lights over the lake at night, bright, spherical orbs that vanished as soon as they were approached. A retired hydrologist named Elvin Marks suggested an odd theory. The base of Lake Wren was never fully surveyed after it was flooded. If there had been structures, old cabins, basements, tunnels, they were now underwater, sealed in cold silence. Marks believed Delaney may have fallen into one such cavity, survived for a time, and somehow continued to transmit a signal using residual electrical currents. That theory didn't explain why her voice reappeared 5 years later, on the same frequency, saying new things. The town eventually declared her legally dead in 2018. Her parents never stopped listening. In 2021, her father passed away from a stroke. At the funeral, her mother handed Mia Tran a small object wrapped in tissue, Delaney's old radio, now silent. "You should have it," she said. "It's still warm sometimes." Mia took it home. She says once, around 3 a.m., she turned it on and heard Delaney humming. Exit 7. Marlon Greaves had driven trucks for nearly 20 years. He was reliable, punctual, and had a reputation for always taking the same route. Route I-84 across Idaho, from Boise to Pocatello and back, twice a week. His logbooks were always tidy. His cab, obsessively clean. He didn't drink, didn't gamble, and didn't believe in the paranormal. "A road is a road," he once told a friend. "All you gotta do is follow it." On April 6, 2009, Marlon set off from Boise on what was supposed to be a routine overnight haul. His manifest showed nothing unusual: paper goods, cleaning supplies, and a few electronics. He left just after 10:30 p.m., under a clear sky, and passed the I-84 way station at 11:04 p.m. Cameras captured his truck cruising normally. He even waved at the station attendant. That was the last time anyone saw him. Just past mile marker 237, near the desolate patch of desert known locally as Dry Hollow, Marlon made a phone call to dispatch. His voice, recorded and later analyzed, sounded calm but slightly confused. "I think I made a wrong turn, but I'm still on 84. It's weird. There's no cars anywhere. Been 20 minutes. Not one headlight." The dispatcher asked him to check his GPS. There was a pause. "I'm passing exit 7, he said. The problem was, there's no exit 7 on I-84 in Idaho. The numbering jumps from 6 to 9. Dispatch thought he was joking. Then the line went dead. The next morning, Marlon's truck was discovered on the shoulder of I-84, right around mile marker 238. The engine was off. The cab doors were locked. The keys were gone. His wallet, phone, and logbook were missing, but the cargo was untouched. The truck itself showed no signs of struggle. Drones scanned the desert for miles. No tracks. No bodies. No blood. Just silence. The most disturbing detail came from a nearby overpass. A traffic camera mounted to its side had gone offline for exactly 14 minutes, between 11:31 and 11:45 p.m., the presumed window of Marlon's disappearance. When technicians reviewed the footage leading up to the blackout, they saw Marlon's truck heading east. Then, just before the footage cut, another vehicle appeared briefly behind it. It was described as a sleek, silver car with no license plates. But it didn't drive like a car. It glided. The tires didn't rotate. Authorities dismissed the image as motion blur and artifacting, a byproduct of the camera's slow frame rate. But conspiracy forums were quick to latch on. They nicknamed it the Silver Follower. 2 months later, Marlon's cell phone was turned on for precisely 37 seconds. The signal was traced to a cell tower in northern Utah, over 200 miles from where his truck was found. By the time authorities arrived, there was nothing. His number was deactivated and has never been used again. The case sat cold until 2013. That's when a highway patrolman, Officer Lane Jensen, responded to a stranded vehicle report near Exit 9. A family of 4 claimed their car stalled for no reason and their phones stopped working. As Jensen approached the scene, his dashcam flickered. A burst of static interrupted the audio feed. And for exactly 7 seconds, a faint male voice was recorded whispering, "Exit 7. I missed the turn." Jensen had no idea until weeks later when the audio was reviewed by his department. Investigators re-examined Marlin's case. A map of the region showed no known structures, rest stops, or exits between 6 and 9. But when a team was dispatched to search that exact stretch, something strange was discovered. Buried beneath the gravel near mile 237, engineers found the remains of an old roadbed, cracked pavement, and a rusted green highway sign, partially intact. The number on it was faded but still legible, Exit 7. The road had existed once. Local records revealed that Exit 7 had been part of a town called Danwick, established in the early 1900s and abandoned in 1968 after the state diverted the highway. The exit and the connecting road had been decommissioned and buried. But that didn't explain how Marlin, in 2009, had seen a road that hadn't existed in over 40 years. Or why he vanished. Some believe Marlin stumbled into a slip in time, an old scar in the road's memory. Others believe he was taken, intercepted by someone, or something, that watches the highway under the cover of isolation and night. The dashcam footage showing the silver car was quietly removed from public record in 2014. When asked about it during a podcast interview, Officer Jensen replied, "I know what I heard. That voice wasn't a ghost. He was still alive. He just wasn't here." To this day, truckers occasionally report seeing signs for Exit 7 during foggy nights. Most ignore it. A few say they turned. None of them were ever heard from again. The Bell Tower Girl. Cressley College was built in 1874, nestled among the snow-dusted hills of Vermont. A private liberal arts school with a modest student population and a deep sense of tradition, it was the kind of place that felt like it had been frozen in time. Ivy crawling up the red brick buildings, antique oil lamps still lining the central quad, and faculty who dressed like they belonged in another century. But nothing on campus carried more eerie weight than the bell tower. Rising from the center of Margrave Hall, the oldest building on campus, the bell tower was tall and narrow, with oxidized copper slats and rotting wooden stairs winding all the way up. Officially, it had been sealed in 1986, after part of the top floor collapsed during a storm. Students were told it was structurally unsafe. But it wasn't just danger that kept people away, it was the stories. They called her the Bell Tower Girl. The legend went back at least to the late 1970s. Students began reporting sightings of a girl in a red coat standing at the top of the bell tower just before midnight, gazing silently out across the campus. Sometimes she was crying. Other times, she simply stood still. No one ever saw her come down. She was always just gone the next morning. Rumors swirled. Some said she was the ghost of a student who fell, or jumped, from the top in 1952. Others believed she had never existed at all, a campus myth created to scare freshmen. Whatever the truth, sightings continued every few years, always in the fall semester, always from a distance. No one ever got a clear look at her face. In October 2015, Haley Sims, a sophomore film student, decided to make the Bell Tower Girl the focus of her final project. A talented documentarian with a skeptical mind, Haley wasn't interested in ghosts, she wanted to explore why people believed them. Her idea was to document the myth, interview eyewitnesses, and, if she was lucky, catch something on camera. She spent 3 weeks gathering footage, walking around campus at night, collecting student testimonies, some emotional, some humorous. But the project took a turn when she found a diary in the school archives, written by a student named Evelyn Morrow, dated 1951. Evelyn's entries hinted at something troubling. She wrote about hearing whispers in the bell tower, seeing shadows move behind closed windows, and dreaming of a girl in red who knocked on her dorm room door but vanished before she could open it. The final entry read, "I know she's not real, but I still see her. Every night now. I hear the bells. There are no bells." Evelyn disappeared in February 1952. No body was ever found. Her name appeared once in the local paper, then faded from history. Haley became obsessed. One night in late October, she convinced a friend from the maintenance crew to unlock the old tower for her. Just a quick walk to get some B-roll footage, she said. Her plan was to set up a static camera facing the top floor, leave it running overnight, and review the footage later. She never came back down. Campus police were alerted the next morning when Haley's roommate reported her missing. A search of Margrave Hall turned up nothing, except Haley's camera, still recording, sitting on the top step just outside the bell tower's access door. The footage was reviewed by both campus officials and local police. The video begins with Haley climbing the stairs. She reaches the final landing, places the camera down, and opens the creaky wooden door to the tower. It swings inward slowly. From the camera's angle, only a slice of the dark room beyond is visible. Haley steps inside. There's a long silence, just wind and the faint creaking of the structure. Then, a minute later, something unexpected. 3 distinct knocks. Not loud, but deliberate. Haley whispers something, too quiet to make out. Then there's a sudden movement, a blur of red across the frame, like fabric caught in the breeze. The image jerks slightly, as if the camera was nudged. Then nothing. Haley never reappeared. No sign of a struggle. No blood. Her phone and backpack were never found. The maintenance worker who let her in swore he locked the door again afterward, standard safety procedure. But no one else had the key. Within days, the administration sealed the tower permanently. The official explanation was a tragic accident. Perhaps she fell through a weakened floor, perhaps she became disoriented and lost her footing. But no evidence of a fall was ever found, and infrared scans of the structure showed no hidden spaces. Her classmates were devastated. A memorial was held under the bell tower, though it hadn't rung in over 30 years. Still, as the crowd stood in silence, some claimed they heard something. A distant chime. 3 slow notes. That winter, students began reporting sightings again. More than before. The girl in red was seen standing in the tower windows almost weekly. But now, she didn't just appear, she moved. Slowly, from one side of the tower to the other. Watching. Waiting. Some say she looks just like Haley. The college refuses to speak publicly about the incident. Haley's film project was quietly removed from the school's digital archive. But copies of the footage still exist, circulated online, usually with distorted audio and corrupted frames. One version, uploaded anonymously in 2017, includes something new. At the end of the clip, buried beneath static and wind noise, a voice whispers, "Tell them I'm not alone." The last bus to Elmridge. It was foggy the night Elmridge lost 7 people. Not the kind of light mist that rolls in on river towns, but a dense, choking fog that seemed to crawl down from the hills, swallowing everything it touched. The locals said it felt wrong, even before the bus vanished. Elmridge, Kentucky, was a small town near the Appalachian foothills, surrounded by coal-streaked valleys and rusted-out mining roads. About 1,000 people called it home in 1993, most of them born and raised there, and most never leaving. The only regular connection to the outside world was a twice-daily commuter bus from Wexley, a slightly larger town 30 miles west. On the evening of March 3rd, at exactly 6:15 p.m., the 6 Elmridge line left the Wexley Transit Station. The driver, Paul Hendricks, had worked the route for 10 years. He was quiet, dependable, and took pride in knowing every curve of the mountain roads by heart. That night, he had 6 passengers. Millie Carson, 81, on her way back from a doctor's appointment. Jordan Hale, 26, returning from a job interview. The Pearsons, Greg and Lena, middle-aged couple visiting family. A boy named Theo, age 10, traveling with his older sister, Paige, 15. All were regular riders. Paul waved to the station guard as usual and pulled away into the thickening fog. He never made it to Elmridge. When the bus didn't arrive by 7 p.m., people assumed delays. The roads were winding, and in that kind of fog, Paul would have slowed down. But by 8:30 p.m., with no sign, no radio call, and no bus, concern turned to panic. By morning, state troopers were combing Route 12, the only road between the two towns. They found nothing. No skid marks. No crash. No broken branches. No tire tracks leading off the road. It was as if the bus had evaporated. Then came the strange detail. At exactly 6:44 p.m., the Wexley Transit switchboard received a shortwave radio ping from Bus 06. A voice was faintly heard. "We can't see the road. Everything's white. I think we passed it." And then, "They're not letting us turn around." Static. The ping came from somewhere around mile marker 17, near the entrance to an abandoned coal mine known as Creek Hollow Shaft. Creek Hollow had been shut down in 1979 after a structural collapse killed 7 miners. The area had since been fenced off, the entrance sealed with concrete and steel. Yet when investigators arrived, they found the chain on the gate broken, and faint impressions of tire tracks leading toward the entrance, but only halfway. The tracks ended abruptly in the gravel. 4 months, search crews combed the hills. Dogs picked up nothing. Helicopters scanned for wreckage. Ground-penetrating radar was used around the mine entrance. Still nothing. The town grieved. The families mourned. No bodies were found. In 2001, 8 years later, a couple hiking near the ridgeline discovered something unusual about 2 miles from the mine. A school backpack, faded and covered in dirt. Inside were coloring books, a flashlight, and homework papers dated March 3, 1993. One sheet had the name, Theo Chambers, written in big, looping letters. Investigators confirmed it was the same boy who vanished on the bus. The backpack was in surprisingly good condition for something exposed to the elements for nearly a decade. Even stranger, it was dry, despite being discovered in a damp gully. There were no footprints. No sign of animal disturbance. Nothing but the bag. Later that year, a private investigator hired by the Hale family found a cassette tape tucked between the cushions of a donated couch at a local thrift store. Scribbled in black ink was the word Elmridge. On the tape was roughly 2 minutes of audio, presumed to be a recording from inside the bus. Shuffling sounds. Then Paul's voice. "I don't see any lights. There should be lights." A child whispers, "What's that outside?" Then the unmistakable sound of a bell. A soft, distant ringing, like a church tower, but warped, metallic, and echoing. A woman gasps. Someone starts to cry. Then Paul again, low and urgent, "Everyone stay in your seats. Don't look at them. Don't." The tape ends. Wexley authorities dismissed the tape as a hoax, and it was never entered into official evidence. The couch had no clear origin. The thrift store shut down 2 years later. Yet even today, drivers along Route 12 report strange phenomena, headlights that appear in the fog and vanish. The sound of a ringing bell with no source. A child's voice calling, "Wait for us," from the woods. No physical trace of Bus 06 has ever been found. And each year on March 3rd, residents of Elmridge gather at the old bus stop and light 7 candles, one for each person who never came home. In 2019, a road crew paving a new service route near Creek Hollow unearthed part of a steel license plate. It was twisted, scorched, and nearly unreadable. But when cleaned, 3 characters were visible. 06E. Project Echo 7. Roland Marks wasn't a man who talked much. A former Air Force mechanic with a spotless record, he retired in 1997 and disappeared into the dry quiet of Nevada's outskirts. He bought a modest trailer home near a town no one ever heard of and spent his days restoring old radios and reading military history books. Locals who knew him said he was polite but distant, the kind of man who still made his bed military tight every morning and never missed a routine. That's why it was so strange when, in April 2008, his brother received a voicemail from him at 2:46 a.m. The message was short, crackling with static and wind. "If they ask, I was never on Echo 7. It's real. It's moving." Then a sharp click. The line went dead. His brother, Thomas Marks, tried calling back, but Roland's phone went straight to voicemail. Concerned, he drove the 4 hours from Reno to check on him. What he found was chilling. Roland's truck was parked neatly in front of his trailer. The doors were locked. His tools were left in perfect order on his workbench. His bed was made. But Roland was gone. The only sign that anything had happened was on his desk. A disassembled shortwave radio with strange copper wiring modifications, and a folded map of the Nevada desert with a red circle drawn around a patch of land just outside a classified military testing zone. The label written in tiny ink letters, Echo 7. No official records showed a location by that name. Thomas reported the disappearance to the sheriff's department. Within 2 days, the FBI arrived at his home. They asked questions, mostly about Roland's service record, his mental state, whether he had any enemies, or talked about unusual government activity. They took the map and the radio, and left without giving any real explanation. The case was quietly closed as a voluntary disappearance. But Thomas wasn't convinced. He began digging. At first, he found nothing. No references to Echo 7 anywhere in military logs, land deeds, or declassified documents. But a trip to the Las Vegas Veterans Archives changed everything. An elderly archivist, recognizing Roland's name, hesitated when asked about Echo 7. "He was at Greystone in '84, wasn't he?" the man said. "That's where it started." Greystone Airfield was a now-defunct base near Area 6, officially decommissioned in 1991. But in 1984, it housed a covert project linked to deep-frequency seismic listening stations, underground bunkers designed to detect nuclear tests and monitor subterranean movement across enemy lines. According to the archivist, Echo 7 wasn't a place. It was a project designation for an experimental resonance chamber, supposedly built beneath the Nevada desert to amplify and detect frequencies too low for human ears. But something went wrong. Personnel began reporting hallucinations, hearing voices in the walls, distant knocking sounds that grew louder at night. 2 men went missing in the tunnels beneath the facility. One was later found in a storage chamber, his ears filled with blood and a look of terror frozen on his face. The other was never recovered. After a sudden budget termination, the facility was sealed off. Any personnel with direct exposure to the chamber were honorably discharged and ordered to silence under national security codes. Roland Marks had been one of the mechanics assigned to maintain Echo 7's external systems. Thomas went to the area circled on Roland's map, now part of a restricted zone surrounded by fencing and sparse warning signs. He didn't cross the boundary, but he parked and walked along the perimeter. At 3:33 a.m., his phone picked up a low-frequency hum, followed by a strange burst of data on his weather app, lines of repeating symbols, 3 vertical bars and a dot. Over and over. When he returned home, he found a package waiting on his doorstep. No return address. Inside was a cassette tape with a label in blocky handwriting, play at 4:44 a.m. He waited until the exact time. Played the tape. It began with silence. Then a soft knocking, slow and distant. Then a voice. It was Roland. "I don't know where they put me. There's no sky. Only static. The signals never stop. I think it's still listening." The last words were barely above a whisper. "Tell Thomas the chamber's not empty anymore." The tape ended in a harsh metallic screech that fried the cassette deck. A week later, Thomas woke to find strange marks scorched into his front lawn, 3 vertical lines and a single, burned 3 inches deep into the soil. He moved 2 days later. Left the state. Changed his name. The last known trace of Roland came from a NASA anomaly log in 2011. A brief spike in ultra-low radio frequencies was picked up by a deep space array in New Mexico. The signal resembled a human voice but was too distorted to fully decode. One fragment stood out in the waveform. Echo 7. Still here. Roland Marks was never found. Project Echo 7 remains classified. Every case adds a new layer of mystery, leaving more questions than answers. Which one lingers in your mind, and what's your take on what really happened?